Hey guys, this is your High Fist here with another juicy topic. Are you sick of me yet, guys? Are you tired of seeing this face and hearing this voice? Well, if you do, I certainly sympathize, but too bad, because I am here with brand new juiciness. I usually thank Steven Erickson for sharing and almost commenting on my videos, but this time I need to thank him for commenting on and almost sharing my last video. You should go check out the comment that he left if you haven't already, because I thought he made a very valid point. In today's video, we launch a brand new series in addition to all the other unfinished series on this channel. This new series is called Minor Malazan Gems, a series where we look at characters who have very small roles to play in the series, as in the 10 big books, who just turn up in one book or who have very little page time in general, who don't really impact the main story, but the thought put into these characters is still deep enough for us to dissect and study them. So these are not the Casas and Apsalas and Quick Bens and Felicins of the story. These are just the tiny unsung heroes of the 10 big books who exist in the periphery of the plot. Our first character in this series is Buke, not Beak, Buke. Who? Good question. It's that random brooding guy who's with Gruntle at the start of Memories of Ice and he's going mad because he has nothing to live for. And Gruntle keeps worrying about him. And he then joins Baukelane and Cobble Brooch and tries to stop them, even though they see him as an insect. He then drinks this weird potion that Kurul gives him, and that turns him into this sparrowhawk soul taken. And he watches Baukelane and Cobble Brooch fight Anaster and the Tennish Cowrie. And ultimately, he just flies around in a soul taken form to witness the aftermath of Capustan, the slaughter. And he's so horrified by what he sees that he just decides to give up completely on his humanity and gives in to his soul taken form and flies away to live as a bird. He sees what human beings are inflicting on each other and he's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm a bird now. And flies away, and we never know what happens to him ever again, right? He just flies away and is gone forever. That guy, if you remember. I picked him for two reasons. The first is obviously that he's involved in the Baukelane storyline, so that automatically makes him top 5. But the other is because this was actually raised a long time ago on the Discord server, probably around 2020, so it's been a few years now. We had this first time reader who was really enjoying the cool stuff in Memories of Ice, like the Segule and Kachen Chamal and the Siege of Capustan and all that. But he was constantly bothered by many of these side stories that went nowhere. When he found out, for instance, that we never see Buke again in the 10 big books, that once we see that Sparrowhawk fly away, that was it. This guy was really pissed and he was like, oh, that's bullshit. What was the point then of even having Buke as a character? Why does this character even exist if he does nothing to impact the plot and then just flies away, never to be seen again? And I found that to be very interesting because if you read the Malazan books as entertainment or escapist fiction, then you are bound to run into this problem because you do have in this series tons of characters and subplots and side stories which add layers to the books in a way that cannot be appreciated if you're just looking for swashbuckling action adventure. And Buke is one of them. So I have two basic arguments for why Buke is not just a random character, for why his story is very interesting, in my opinion. The first is that Buke's story fits in very nicely with one of the themes of Memories of Ice. So, a long time ago, I mentioned how Reaper's Gale, for example, is all about reversal of power. and that the resolution of almost every plot line in Reaper's Gale is about one side thinking they have power over the other and they turn out to be wrong, right? So whether it's the Edur and Lether, or Icarium and Taralak Veed, or Kasa and Rula slash the Cripple God, or Karos Invictad and Tehol, or Janat and Tanil Yatvana, or Red Mask and the Kachain, where they just kill him in the end. Reaper's Gale is full of stories that are resolved where one side thinks it's in power, and we then see that it was the other side which had the power all along. So each Malazan book has thematic fulcrums like this, around which the plot lines converge. And we had to pick one such theme for Memories of Ice. I would say that, much like Toll the Hounds, the element of catharsis, of relief from some torment, of release from some pain, that is what Memories of Ice and Told the Hounds, but in this case, Memories of Ice, is all about. If you look at the resolution of almost all the plots in Memories of Ice, Kilava being relieved of her guilt by reuniting the two children in the end, the Panian seer being relieved from his sins by being reunited with his sister and now being tasked with protecting Bern, the Tilanaimas now being relieved, my God, from their immortality so that they can find comfort again. In fact, that's what makes Itkovian sacrifice all the more powerful and emotional, because while everyone else is finding release, he willingly takes on a cosmic amount of pain and suffering as his resolution simply to release them. What else? The Mai being relieved of the pain she suffered through motherhood, Bern finding relief from the poisoned warrens, even the bridge burners now ascending, in a sense, being released from their mortal bodies to now fight as immortal guardians for a much higher cause. The wolf gods finally finding relief from their loneliness by finding each other. Talk finally being reborn and finding relief from the horrible torture of that matron. The matron herself now being put to rest. Almost every resolution in Memories of Ice is focused around this theme of relief and release. And from that perspective, I think Buke's end is not only consistent with the rest of the book, but it's also foreshadowing the resolution of the book. It's not just a random storyline that Erikson has just added in as filler. Buke finding release from his human suffering and now giving into this dreamlike and peaceful existence he feels as a sparrowhawk. This detachment from everything he's ever known, now giving him this comfort he never found as a human. Him just flying away into the sunset, finding relief from all the pain, and now living as a bird. I see it as great foreshadowing for how the book ends. And the second defense is that Buke's character is vital to how we see Gruntle. Because while we talk a lot about the Gruntle Stony Menakis stuff a lot, what most readers are likely to get only on their second read is the way in which Gruntle's story is almost sandwiched between two characters in Memories of Ice, Treach or Trake, the tiger god, and Buke. Because if you think about it, Trake's fate was almost exactly Buke's fate. Drake is someone who gave up on his humanity and completely embraced his soul taken side, much like Buke, to the point where his human identity was no longer relevant, much like Buke. And Gruntle's arc itself is about this primary issue. Is he going to become Drake's tiger, or is he going to reject that to retain his own human identity? And throughout the series, we see Gruntle struggling with this. And of course, it ends in tragedy, but we don't know that yet in Memories of Ice. So, Gruntle in the middle of these two soul taken who've given up on their humanity, I thought that was interesting. And Buke is also a great lesson on why it's not so easy to be a soul taken. I mean, think about it. If it was that easy, then there would be so many soul taken in the Malazan world rather than it being such an elite power. If there was no risk or price to pay, then anyone with wealth or power or influence or magical knowledge would actively try to acquire it and succeed in many cases. In fact, until this point in the story, we only see powerful soul taken like Rake and all that path of hand stuff. I think Buke's story is a great reminder of what would happen if a regular person like you and I was given this power. He's the first normal person, to my knowledge, that we actually see being given the soul taken ability in the 10 big books. And we see through him that if most regular people were just given this power, the temptation would just be to give in to your animalistic side because it makes you free in a way that your humanity doesn't allow. And the more we see of what our fellow human beings do to each other, the stronger the temptation to just give in to our bestial side and melt with nature and leave all this cruelty behind. Buke is so overwhelmed by what he sees in Capustan that he can't take being a human anymore. In that sense, it takes great indifference and detachment from the world for you to be a successful soul taken and resist that temptation when you see what humanity does to each other. It takes almost superhuman mental strength to be soul taken and retain yourself. I mean, just look at what's happening in the world right now. I'm sure many people are just as horrified with what they've seen in the news this week as Buke was when he saw all that carnage in Capustan. In the end, we are all Buke in one way or another. This is your High Fist. I hope you found that video interesting, guys. Take care, and you will see me soon.